And Criss didn't know anything about music theory. He just had a magical way of working around the fretboard. But at that time, we didn't really realize how good he was until years later. And you listen back and it's like, holy shit.
Vernomatic Productions.
Are you ready?
Live from the Metal Mayhem Studios in Rochester, New York.
We are gold. We are gold.
And heard around the world by metalheads just like you. This is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Heavy metal music.
Your weekly dose of metal music, interviews, album reviews, news, and more. Want to be part of the show? Send us a message through our website, metalmayhemroc.com, or hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Search Metal Mayhem ROC. A proud member of the Pantheon podcast team.
It's getting nice and heavy.
Now, welcome our hosts, John the Vernomatic Verno, and direct from New Jersey, Metal Walt.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, and especially staying healthy. Hey, you know, we're in the dog days of summer. It's August, and both Walt and I wanted to thank you for taking a few minutes out of your busy summer schedule to spend with us. Metal Walt has another killer interview this week as he sits down with Savatage bassist Johnny Lee Middleton to discuss the band's gutter ballet era, the new live album Madness Reigns from the Gutter, and share some really cool reflections on the late great Criss Oliva. Johnny takes us back to those early days and the influence Paul O'Neill had on Savatage as the band began evolving from the clubs into something much bigger. Find out exactly how they came about using a rare 1990 recording for this new live album, and what Johnny thought when he finally heard it again after all these years. Johnny also reflects on his best friend Criss Oliva and what stands out to him today when he listens back to Criss playing during that period. It's very emotional. It's really makes you stop and think what a loss there really was with Criss passing many years ago. And with Savatage back on stage and moving forward, hear what Johnny has to say about the band's future and the possibility of finally bringing Savatage back to the United States. All that and more, so let's let the madness reign. Metal Walt, Johnny Lee Middleton. I'm the Vernomatic, and this is Metal Mayhem ROC.
So, Johnny, welcome to Metal Mayhem ROC. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing awesome. So, you know, a little fact about me, I'm located in New Jersey up here, and I first discovered Savatage 1987. I was 17 years old listening to Metal Shop, Charlie Kendall. Everybody knew that show, and I remember that was the Mountain King kind of tour, and all the singles were out, but then Gutter Ballet came out, and that's kind of the album that kind of really changed my perception of the band, and here it is 35 years later. It's exciting to revisit this year with this new live album, Madness Reigns from the Gutter. So let's first go back to that period of time. So, you know, maybe for you, you know, when you were making that Gutter Ballet album, did it feel like the beginning of a new chapter of the band, or was it just simply the evolution as it happened?
Well, it was just kind of the evolution of really what happened. We had just started working with Paul O'Neill on the prior record, and he kind of introduced us into the kind of the classical kind of stuff. And it was the first time we used like emulators. That was the first sampling, you know, at the record plant in New York. And so we kind of got introduced to the orchestrated side of music, and John had just got a piano, and his dad was a piano player. So he showed him a couple of things, how to play, and then he kind of gravitated into, you know, we came up with the Gutter Ballet riff, and then came up with, like, you know, The Crowds Were Gone. That was originally called the Sun Song. And we started experimenting with keyboards and orchestration more. And it was just kind of an evolution of the band, just growing as musicians, and with the influence of Paul, of course, who kind of turned us on to all this stuff. I didn't know what Peer Gynt Suite was. You know, I remembered a song, The Mountain King, from like the Bugs Bunny commercial or cartoons, but, you know, we were just a bunch of kids at the time and metalheads. And Paul's influence kind of started steering us into a direction that would turn into the sound of the band at the time.
Yeah, completely. And I think about it. If you think about it, all these years later, that was sort of the bridge. Like Gutter Ballet was the bridge to from the early metal years, let's say, and eventually Streets was a completely different body of work. The creative seeds of Trans-Siberian Orchestra started. So in a sense, I always said Paul was like the sixth member of the band, but this was very early on in his tenure. Like, so did he have this sort of vision at that time that this is where the band was going, or was this just his footprint initially?
Well, if you look at the Gutter Ballet video, and then if you look at Trans-Siberian Orchestra, you can see that's exactly what he had in his mind. Because if you look at the guys playing the strings and the fire blowing up behind them, and the rock band, it was kind of his vision and his direction that led us down this path. And like I said, John had just got a piano, so he was just learning. I mean, the riff of Gutter Ballet, he's doing with two fingers. Ding, ding, playing one finger like Bugs Bunny, kind of stuff going on. So the whole band was kind of growing at that time as musicians, and we took Paul's influence and ran with it.
Yeah, it's amazing too, because I was thinking back again to being a teenager and being glued to Headbangers Ball and MTV, and I remember both of those videos, Gutter Ballet and When the Crowds Were Gone. It definitely had a different feel. It wasn't your traditional metal video. It's kind of emotional, smoke and lights and candles and that kind of thing. It was like, in a sense, very cinematic from the start.
Yeah, I mean, we shot on film, back then, and so you got better. If you look at the video from the Gutter Ballet video, the colors and everything, it was it was a time where things were changing in the music business, and we were trying to find our way because it was cutthroat, man. You had a record, but you didn't have a guarantee for another one. It was the album's option. Yeah, the label's option, I should say. So we were trying to put the best product out so we could get another shot. Because if Gutter Ballet didn't sell, there wouldn't have been a Streets. If Streets didn't sell, it's the way it worked back then. So we were kind of always fighting for our lives, and experimentation was a part of our survival.
Yeah. I even think of those songs on Hall of the Mountain King and, kind of revisiting them for this discussion. You think of songs like 24 Hours Ago and even, Strange Ways. Like there was that sense already of the melody starting to come out, So in a way, like maybe early seeds, I heard that. And that's kind of one of the draws that I came into the band, because I said, hey, you got these great metal songs, great guitar stuff, awesome singing, but there's melody in here too. And I think it just was upped in Gutter Ballet.
Well, Paul was always one that he wanted us to create songs that could stand the test of time. And so a lot of guys, you go write about fast cars, you can write about fast women. Those are not that really hard to write about, but he wanted to go a little deeper into the lyrical content, and the band was we were all ears. We were ready to grow, and we kind of just, yeah, we didn't do things like other bands were doing, and we basically kind of paid the price for that, because there was bands that just went and blew us out of the water with record sales, but then you look at them and where are they now? It's like, where are these guys now? I just finished my 28th year doing Trans-Siberian Orchestra tour, so we managed to actually make a career out of it, where a lot of people were, really big, and then they just faded off into into the night, and we're still here.
Absolutely, and we're happy about that. So, hey, let's get into the new live album. So this captures the band. It was on the 1990 tour called the Rulin' Gutter Tour, and this was recorded at the Palace in Hollywood in June of 1990. I listened to the album, and I believe it was originally broadcast on the radio. So I'm just curious, did this recording sort of sit dormant for all these years, and then he kind of picked it up and restored it, remixed it? I guess, in other words, why was this the right time to finally release this live album?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't even know it was recorded. I thought it was just a radio broadcast, and we forgot about it. But when we did it, the record plant was the studio that we recorded at in New York City. And then they had a record plant in LA. And so what we did is we actually mixed the live radio broadcast with their mobile truck. They had 2 mobile recording trucks. So I just thought that we were using the mobile truck to mix the songs for the radio. And I didn't even really know we were rolling tape. And then a couple years ago, they were like, hey, man, we found this in the tape vault. And we were like, oh. And so we pulled it up. We have a studio in Tampa. The guys put it up and pulled the faders up. And it was like, well, all the parts are here. You know, it was kind of mixed. It wasn't mixed that great, but we had the parts. So we decided to let our engineers go at it and see what you can do. You know, we didn't know if it was going to work or not. And when we heard the first couple of mixes of some songs, we were like, wow, this is pretty good. And the band was on fire because we were been out for a while on the road. So we were pretty tight and we were on fire. We played every night pretty much. And we were out with Testament for a while, and then we did our own stuff. And that was the band was just on fire, and the recording came out so good. And we had to put it out.
Yeah. I was going to say, is this something that, did you guys record on the tour? Was this something that, okay, you recorded every show, or was this just kind of a one-off thing? Because I'll tell you a little tidbit. The first time I saw Savatage was later that year in September at L'Amour in Brooklyn, the famous L'Amour with Trouble. And I didn't even realize that, but I look back now and I heard that some of those tracks were pulled for a different live album that you guys previously released. At the time Criss died, you put a tribute album out. So just curious, was this like a thing you guys did? You just kind of hit record on the road?
No, it wasn't easy back then. You know, it was the 90s, or actually late 80s and 90s. It wasn't, we didn't have anything to record with, but New York, L'Amour record plant had a mobile truck in Manhattan. So it was just driving it to Brooklyn. And so we used the record plant mobile truck for the L'Amour stuff, and that went on other releases. And then the record plant mobile truck in LA was the one that we used for the Hollywood show. So we actually had that whole show, and then we had the whole L'Amour show. But the one that we just released is a complete show from Hollywood. It's from soup to nuts, from this beginning to the end, is that show only. There's nothing from any other recording on there. But we didn't have the ability back then to record other than with a ghetto blaster or a Walkman. You know.
Exactly. I mean, we'll talk about that show, but again, quickly on the L'Amour piece, I'll never forget that for me personally, because this was the era where bands went on really late. And I'll never forget this. I live in Jersey. It's about a 40-minute drive from Jersey to L'Amour without traffic. And I remember going on, you guys went on at like 1 a.m. Let's say you played till 2:20, 2:30. By the time you get out of there, I had to drive a friend of mine. And I just remember, Johnny, coming in my house. I lived at home still, and the sun was coming up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was stupid late shows back then, you know. It was you go on like midnight, 1 o'clock, because I don't think the place closed till like 3 or 4 in the morning.
No.
So, yeah, that was kind of the norm back then, you know. Now, shit, I'm in bed at 10 o'clock.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Yeah, if the prospect was to go see a band that's going on at 11, you're like, oh, no, that's a little late for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, you know, back to the live recording, a couple of observations I had. You know, this was a different era, but I remember right before 24 hours ago, John kind of said something to the crowd like, hey, we got into Hollywood last night. We were out partying, getting chicks, or something along those lines. So I'm always curious, was this just canned stage banter? Or was this like actually a big event for the band? And like, what was it like back then, partying? Or was that kind of just getting a good, cool little story on the record?
No, we lived sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but it was more like rock and roll, drugs, and sex. We kind of had it backwards, you know? But no, that's the life we lived, man. We were burning the candle at both ends. I mean, there was a, you know, it was rock and roll as raw and as hard as you can get, man. It was basically, we lived that lifestyle for a while. You can only do that for so long, and you're gonna, you know, you're gonna fade away. But we managed to make it through, and We don't do that anymore. It's more like Tiger Balm patches, Advils, and massage therapists. And so it's changed quite a bit over the years. But yeah, we lived that lifestyle, man. It was a lot of fast women, fast times. And yeah, it was a lot of booze involved. And yeah, we were a rock band, man. We were kids. I think I was 27 when we recorded that. So I think John was the oldest guy and he was 30.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think. I know when he introduced the band, he introduced you as the guy who loves his Budweiser beer or something like that. So
probably. That was my drink of choice back in the day. Yeah. The old Budweiser
cans. All right. So this wasn't just one of those fantasy stories. You guys were really out partying in Hollywood the night before. So we'll
Oh yeah. And the night after the show as well. Yeah. I remember it like it was yesterday. I could tell you the girl's name, but I won't.
So, Johnny, looking back at this particular performance, I mean, the album top to bottom is just loaded with killer songs. I mean, in hearing this thing 30-something years later for you, were there any particular songs or highlights that made you think, wow, listen, this was one of these holy grail live recordings that we kind of unearthed?
Well, after listening back to it, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. It was kind of like going through your yearbook and remembering your friends, oh, I remember that guy, and so it was interesting because just the set in general was a great set that we had put together, and it was extremely brutal on John to sing that every night, because everybody was smoking cigarettes back then. You're playing smoky bars, drinking, the drinking, the smoking, the drugs, and all that. It was yeah, it was one of those things that it was a survival kind of thing. And when we listen back to it, those songs all they kind of ring a bell, I guess, in your memory. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that one. And then there's some mistakes on the album. I got a couple nice ones. Everyone gets a couple. We didn't fix anything, we didn't really have the ability to fix anything. And we didn't even never crossed our mind. So we left it there, warts and all, man.
That's good. Well, that's the way us fans like it. It was funny. I was out doing my walk this morning early in the day, and I was playing the album. And when Gutter Ballet, the song came on, the way John introduced it must have been around the time where maybe it was just released as a single, because the way he presented it was like, hey, we're going to do something different here. I hope you guys dig this. And then he kind of went into the piano. And it's interesting, you think about that song, how it blew up after, but in that moment, it almost seemed like, hey, we're going to try something out different. Like, was my kind of recollection right there?
Yeah, because I mean, the tour before was the Mountain King tour, and there was no piano in that, and it was the first time we were doing songs that had piano intros or piano parts at all, So it was definitely something different for the band, because we had never done any live stuff with John actually playing the piano, because he wasn't good enough to play in the Mountain King. We had the piano mainly for noise and, samples and voices and stuff. But he started to evolve as a piano player. And that's when we started putting the stuff in, was that tour. That's the first time we ever used piano live.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I mean, and talking about the whole of the Mountain King album, there was, I believe, 5 songs from that album representing on this tour. And would you say, in a sense, this was still kind of the band's way of continuing to promote that album as well? Because that album only had come out maybe a year and a half before.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to do like an hour and a half set. So there's not an hour and a half worth of songs. And plus you had a back catalog. So you always had to pick like your Sirens and, Power of the Night and songs from your back catalog. But Mountain King was the freshest one that we had in our back catalog. And there's some real strong songs on there. So we went ahead and pulled, what we thought would make the best set. It didn't really matter what album it came off of. It had to be heavy and fit in the right time, right place. Because you don't want to put all the songs in the key of A or the key of E back to back. You don't want to have songs with all the same tempos back to back. So you want to mix up your set. And having the back catalog, the Mountain King record and all that, it gave us the opportunity to pick and choose songs and build a really nice set.
Yeah, certainly. It is a really strong set. And of course, the songs, even the deeper cuts from Gutter Ballet, are represented well there. But Johnny, I'd be remiss to not mention Criss Oliva and his long-standing legacy with the band. I mean, just it gives me goosebumps looking at the album cover where he's kind of right over the left shoulder of Jon, and Jon's pointing out into the crowd, and just listening to his guitar mastery on this album, it's just a pure joy. And so for you, when reflecting about him all these years later, what kind of emotions and feelings do you have today thinking about Criss Oliva?
Ah, man, he was my best friend. So it was, he was just on fire, man. The way the stuff he did and the way he played. And we didn't realize at the time, that he was such a monster of a player. It just came natural to him. He never really, none of us knew any kind of music theory. We didn't go, hey, what key is this in? It's in the key of the 3rd fret. Okay, go. We just knew what to play. And Criss didn't know anything about music theory. And the guy is just a monster, man. And he always was a monster. And he just had a magical way of working around the fretboard. But at that time, we didn't really realize how good he was until years later. And you listen back and it's like, holy shit. This guy was ahead of his time. And we kind of had a deal back in the day. If something happens to me, carry on. If something happens to you, I'll carry on. And we had a pact amongst the band. And this is us letting his legacy live on. And people get to hear it now. And everyone's like, holy crap, and he died at 30 years old. I'm 63, so he would have been 63. Imagine what he'd be doing now. It'd be really, really insane. But he just had a magic with that thing, and you can hear it all throughout that record.
Yeah, certainly. I'm always curious too. I mean, we haven't had a chance to see the let's say Savatage in 2026 yet come to the States, fingers crossed. But how is it kind of pulling out some of these old songs? I mean, granted, for years in the 90s and 2000s, you did a lot of the back catalog with Zach, but when you hear an old recording like this, and then you have to go to band rehearsal and hear Sirens and Hall of the Mountain King and Gutter Ballet and all these songs over again, how does it translate now with a different band in a sense?
It's really kind of the same, you kind of play the songs the same way, you do the same things, you just got a different team. It's kind of like a baseball team. You just got a different first baseman, you got a different pitcher, a different outfielder. We approach it the same way. Yeah, it's different than it used to be, but we're a lot older than we used to be. Everyone in the band's great players, great singers. So we approach it the same way, but yeah, it's definitely not the same as it was. And with this new set too, we do a lot of we have a lot of records with Zach singing. And so we do a lot of songs like the Wake of Magellan, all of the stuff, the Edge of Thorns stuff. So we kind of lean more heavy on those things. We do touch the back catalog, but we do a lot of the more recent stuff as well.
Sure. I mean, fast forwarding to today, I mean, the reunion now, it's gone on to now we're in your second summer of this. Seems like it's been incredibly successful. But now that you've completed a couple of tours, and I know you have a big European run coming up, has it compared with your initial expectations? Like, how do you feel about it where you're at now?
Well, we didn't know, the first gigs we did we did in South America. And we weren't sure how we would be accepted or not, so it's like, let's go. Cause we knew we can all play, we've been playing, we're better players than we were in 1990 cause we've been playing for, a lot longer, so we knew we could play, we knew we could do these songs. And then when we did our first show at Monsters of Rock in Sao Paulo, it was like the fans stayed with us. So they were just so happy to see us that, it was like, okay, I think this is going to work. And then we did our first headline show in Sao Paulo, and the crowd singing louder than the band. So it was like, all right, these guys, I think this will work, because they, we're not getting shit thrown at us, and everyone's fucking loving it. So we went ahead and did the European thing, and the first show we did in Germany, it was just totally amazing. It was sold the building out. I think we sold more t-shirts than we got in a guarantee. Everybody in the building singing the songs, there's tears streaming down their faces, and it's like, well, I think this is going to work, and so far it's been working pretty good. So we're real happy with it.
Well, do you see this as an ongoing thing? Because, the way it works with, I've seen TSO many times over at the Prudential Center in Newark and, the old Meadowlands Arena. So we kind of know how it works. Like, you guys get out on the road, rehearsing in October, and you hit the stages November, December. So you have a box, a window that you can tour, especially Europe being big with the festivals. But do you see this becoming sort of an annual thing, a touring thing for the band, or are you just kind of taking it 1 year at a time?
Oh, no, we have a 10-year plan. So we're on year 2.
Wow.
So we've still got some time left. Yeah, we have some more music we're going to release. We have a game plan, and we're working on getting some stuff together in the States for next year. But yeah, we plan on coming back to South America next year and in Europe again. And we're trying to snake some stuff in the United States, whether it's a package deal with a couple other bands or just doing some one-off shows with ourselves. The problem is we never did get to the point of drawing enough people in the United States to warrant the money that we need to pay the 18 guys that I got to pay to do a gig. And when we did the stuff back in the Savatage days, we used a lot of our friends and stuff as crew guys. And it was like the music friends. Now I got to have guys, the guys we use are the TSO guys, and they don't work for cheap. So we have really good crew, but they cost a lot of money. And so we could make the guarantees in Europe that make it worth our time to do this. And we're working on some stuff in the States right now that you probably see us next year.
All right, that would be amazing to know, because listen, I think you should know this based on your fan reaction, that there's going to be people filling the buildings, whether you go smaller venues or medium-sized venues. You're going to get that support base, and obviously that's the magic question. But Johnny, you're thinking about it, talking about like touring in 2026, going back to 1990, amazing how in your press notes, it said you guys did something like 114 shows over a 9-month period. That's crazy when you think about it now. Like, how did you do it?
Well, that's what we did. I mean, we had to sell records. We didn't have any choice. If we didn't sell records, you wouldn't have had streets, So we were out there trying to sell records, and that's the way it worked. But you're looking at a band. I mean, with TSO, I do 52 shows in 48 days. So it's not like we're afraid of working. So we just had a good work ethic, and we stayed out because we wanted to move product. And we did a lot of shows, and the band was on fire. We were tight because we did it every night.
Yeah. Yeah, it is crazy. Going back to that Lamore reference, just to think, right? You're getting off stage 2:30 in the morning. You're hanging out. You're drinking some beers. You're partying. You got to break the equipment down. Then you got to get on a bus. It's probably like 5 a.m. now, and you're probably playing Connecticut the next night. You did it 7 days a week.
Yeah, pretty much. That was it, man. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, man. That was it every night.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Johnny, we really appreciate this conversation, and congratulations again on finally bringing this masterpiece live recording to the fans. And we wish you best of luck and continued success on the Prelude to Madness tour this summer.
Well, thank you very much. It was nice chatting with you.
Yeah, same here. And I hope to get to see you in person down the line at a Jersey or New York show. So, for Johnny Lee Middleton of Savatage, I'm Metal Walt, and this is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Metal for life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.